Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I hope everyone from the US had a very happy Thanksgiving. CIG celebrated it with Drake Day, and everybody got a free skin if they own an Intrepid. Now, today I want to talk about master modes. This is a very hotly debated topic, and CIG went over the changes that are coming to this vital feature of the game on today's IAE show. Now, what I want to do in this video is I want to listen to everything that they have to say about the changes, and then I kind of want to break it down and then at the end give my opinion and feedback. So if that seems interesting to you guys, stick around and let's get right into this video.
We'd been talking about master modes for quite some time. We've been building it up as the big savior of the spaceship combat experience. It released to mixed reviews at times. Some people are for it, some people are less than for it. We'll just say that kindly. I want to talk about what our plan is, what our vision is. Where are we going with this? What is the plan moving forward with master modes?
The big thing around master modes is that it's never was designed to be a static piece of development. We always wanted to make sure that we were adding in new systems as they came along that then influenced those design decisions that we made at the time. And I think two big pieces of feature work that we're going to be bringing to Star Citizen that's going to have a drastic change on how we implement master modes is going to be crafting and quantum boost. So right now with master modes itself.
Okay, so right off the bat, that is very interesting. Now, I know that this iteration that we have of master modes wasn't going to be permanent because it obviously misses out some key features that we're supposed to be getting with the resource management system. Okay, so I think that them outlining that the biggest changes are going to be coming from quantum boost and crafting is very fascinating, but I'm going to let them finish before I give my opinions about that again.
We have obviously the two master modes, SCM and NAV. A big thing is that we're going to actually be demoting or converting those modes from master modes to operator modes. What that inherently means is that we're still going to have a mode that is dedicated to fating and having combat. There is going to be a mode that's dedicated to your quantum, but we're going to be removing some of the fail-safe restrictions, yes, that had when you switching between these modes. We're going to be moving towards one cohesive speed between all operator modes. That speed is going to be more akin to what you'd imagine SCM speeds are now, but there's two big, huge caveats that come into that. First off is crafting. So crafting will allow you to upgrade your ship and to tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you want to have combat at higher speeds, if you have a tier 5 ship and you have the best thrusters and you've specialized, you've bought an interceptor ship, that will be more applicable to those types of ships. So that gives people options to choose, like I want to have this type of gameplay versus this type of gameplay. Having that cohesive, unified speed, the one thing that we really need to address is this kind of like nav flight mode that is kind of, it sits in this very odd position. We want to kind of accelerate that process of that navigation. And Quantum Boost goes all the way up to your top speed of SCM or top speed of our current nav mode, all the way up to essentially a tenth of quantum travel speed. You have this spectrum of speeds that allow you to navigate the large spaces in our game, but also then still stay true to some of the intentions that we delivered with master modes.
Master modes we talked a lot about, and the combat side broadly staying the same. The nav side that was the limiting factor, we often said like, it's too fast, but not fast enough. The amount of times we watch new players go into nav, go towards a station, and then we'd be sat there going, they've not stopped in time. So Quantum Boost was always supposed to be that bridge gap, and without it, we were left with this sort of nav mode that didn't quite do what we wanted.
The one limitation that we are retaining is the fact that you can't have your quantum drive enabled and also your shields. And ultimately, that's a binary decision. Operator modes will start off as the default configuration that we've set in terms of the controls, in terms of the MFDs and what you're casting onto your HUD, in terms of your resource network presets. But that doesn't stop you from then going in and customizing it. We're providing an initial, hey, this is what we think is a good default setting.
And through all of this, because that binary distinction is between modes, you have to be in this mode or this mode, and there's all these very strict rules between those modes, you keep your weapons through all this. So this now becomes a more tactical decision in combat. But if you need that sudden burst of speed, either to get away from something or to catch up to something, you make the choice. You sacrifice your shields, certainly, but you can still bring your weapons to bear instead of get there, and the second you're out.
And ultimately,
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there for a little bit and kind of talk about what they, because they just laid out a bunch of information, and I was trying to kind of stay quiet and really listen to everything that they're saying, right? So I think I kind of get the idea now. So basically, they're saying that there's going to be a baseline they're going to create for ships, and there's a whole can of worms to unpack with that, right? But essentially, let's say that there's a baseline speed for all ships. Now, the question is, and something that they kind of talked about, is that quantum boost is going to be speed range between max SCM and 10% the speed of quantum, your regular quantum. Okay, so that means that I believe we will still have our regular SCM range, but it's, in my opinion, unclear based on this conversation what that looks like, because in standard control mode, right, and nav mode, you have different speeds, right? You have your, essentially, when you go into your standard control mode or combat mode, you have atmospheric speed limitation in space, right? And when you go back into nav mode to enable your quantum drive, that speed range goes all the way up to, let's say, between 1,000 and 1,400 meters per second, right? Now, this standard speed that they're gonna, make across the board, what is that, right? Is it the standard control mode speed range up to, I don't know, 400 meters a second? Or is it 1,100 to 1,400 meters a second, depending on your ship? Because it's somewhere kind of in between, right? Now, what they essentially said is that if you want to do combat at faster speeds, you're going to have to craft higher tier ships or ship components, whatever have you, right? So if you want to do combat at 1,000 meters per second, you need a tier 5 ship. And I know everybody's probably thinking immediately, oh, well, how's that affect balance, right? How do you balance that? Well, obviously, that is going to create an interesting dynamic for people who are interested in combat, right? The way that there's going to be two camps of people, right? There's going to be one camp of people who says that that's a good thing because it encourages people to actually play the game. But Star Citizen is a very skill-based game, right? So you have a ship and your skills is essentially what makes you good. With a system like that, not only do you have to play the game, but there's a certain level in it where this ship will, being in a tier 5 ship will make you inevitably that much better than someone else who has amazing skills in a tier 1 ship, right? So that is kind of that classic MMO trope where, you're a level 30 and you come across a level 40 and that guy's gonna, destroy you, so you avoid him in PvP or whatever. This is kind of that similar situation. It's like, how are we gonna be able to tell that guy's in a tier 5 ship, right? You come across a guy, he's attacking you, are we gonna have, markers next to the ship name? This is a tier ship, a tier 5 ship, don't mess with this guy type thing. Again, regular MMOs have these tags above the character's head, so what's the deal, what's going on. You have that information. Maybe you can scan the ship and it'll tell you, okay, this ship, has this type of component or something like that. I don't know. And that factors into the play economy where, again, one camp is going to say, then, well, that's a good thing because it encourages combat players to go and purchase crafted items from people who craft, right? And then, again, that's good for the player economy. And there's going to be another camp of players who are going to say, okay, well, that means that for me to take advantage of my skills, I have to grind, right? And that is kind of like the taboo word when it comes to Star Citizen because, obviously it's a very buggy game and all that kind of stuff. But aside from that, most people who are interested in Star Citizen, they don't want the game to become grindy where, let's say, if you're a combat player interested in combat stuff, combat makes a decent amount of money, right? It's not too bad. But if you're in a tier 1 ship and you're going around doing basic missions and stuff, increasing your reputation, maybe you're doing the storyline, it kind of feels like it'll be inevitable that you're going to have to do some type of content that you're not really good at or interested in to be able to get to the content that you want to. And that is a big diversion from what Star Citizen is today, whereas you buy the ship you want, and you immediately start doing the gameplay that you're interested in. This is going to be a little bit different where if you want to be the best, you have to engage in a lot of different systems, really. And CIG might say different things, but let's just be realistic here. Again, if you're someone like Avenger 1, for instance, and you want to be, do the dogfighting stuff, you have to have people in your org start crafting good components, start crafting good ships, or you're going to have to grind missions so you can make money to buy the good stuff before you're a badass combat player, right? So Avenger 1 is going to launch the game on 1.0 and he's going to suck. Essentially, he's going to be just as bad as everyone else, and he's going to have to race to make a good ship, right? And then you have to factor in everybody has fleets, right? And the way you're going to look at it is okay, I'm going to put all of this effort into one ship. Then what if I want to change a ship? What if I want to do that with another ship? So I think that it's an interesting system, okay? But I think that this is something that the players are going to need to kind of have in their hands. I think what they're talking about right now is a lot of, pie in the sky. This is what we want it to be, but we don't have crafting yet. We don't have that play economy yet. We don't know what the components are going to be like. We don't even have resource management. There are a lot of key pieces to this conversation that we don't have that makes me feel like they're kind of talking about this too early, right? And again, it's good that they're saying the intentions out there that master modes is going to change, but the players really don't know what it's going to look like. And I think that probably iteration is going to be a little bit better for the players, because we look at the flight model and it's changing all the time. It changes a lot. So I think that the major thing I guess I want to say to the devs is that I understand their interest into, breaking things down into operator modes or master modes, right? But I don't think that's the fundamental issue with master modes right now or the flight model. I think the fundamental issue that a lot of players are having with the flight model is, of course, the thrust geometry. Again, I know a lot of people who watch Avenger 1 and his opinion on the flight model, you know, if you're in the combat scene whatsoever, the flight geometry is going to be the major crux of the flight model. Okay, and that's not something that CIG is talking about here in this video. And again, I said it in my previous master mode video, and I'll say it again here. There's a difference between acceleration and thrust, right? Thrust is, the amount of energy, the maximum amount of energy that your thrusters can exert. Acceleration is the speed at which that maximum energy can be attained, right? So I think that kind of what CIG should move in the direction of, right, is reducing the egg-shaped acceleration pattern, right, and going back to a spherical acceleration pattern. You can keep the egg-shaped thrust pattern, but I feel like, okay, I'll put it like this, right? If you're fighting somebody and your maximum acceleration is in forward movement, gonna fly straight towards them to close whatever gap you have, right? Because this is the direction where you have maximum acceleration. You can get to the speed that you want to the fastest in this direction. So people will automatically and just naturally revert to that direction, right? So if you have a spherical acceleration pattern, it doesn't matter, right? You're going to go sideways to get away from that person. You're going to go backwards to get away from that person or towards that person. And this is not disengaging, again, because every direction accelerates at the same speed but your forward direction. So to disengage, you would have to completely turn around, and you're still accelerating at the same speed as you would have if you were backing up, but your top speed will be higher, right? So to disengage, it will have to be an intentional decision, not just, oh, okay, I want to put distance between this person, or I want to close a gap, and I'm just accidentally, 2 kilometers, 10 kilometers, just the gap is just getting bigger and bigger. That wouldn't happen, again, because the decision to go in the direction that you have your maximum thrust is going to need to be so much more intentional, because all the other directions have the same acceleration pattern, if that makes any sense, right? So I think that if CIG is able to design a flight model where, let's say, okay, maybe a player understands the combat patterns, right? And that's why some people were likening the system from a 6 degree of system to a 3 degrees of freedom flight model system. It's not a 3 degrees of flight model system, but because you have so much more forward acceleration, what people end up doing is flying forward most of the time. They end up flying their ship like they only have 3 degrees of freedom, even though they have 6, right? Because they have so much forward acceleration, not just thrust. But if you go back to a spherical geometry, then people will fly in any direction that they want to, and it'll feel more like a 6 degree of freedom flight model. So I think that that is kind of the key conversation we should be having around master modes. I don't think that the speeds matter as much, to be perfectly honest with you guys. I think that if they made a model that felt good, they wouldn't have to force you into a mode, right? And that's kind of the system we had before. We didn't have multiple modes. But the problem is, I think that they thought the skill ceiling, okay, was too, or the skill floor was too high. And so to kind of bring that down, they wanted to bring down the speeds, but you could bring down the speeds and keep the flight geometry. But I think the problem was that different ships had wildly different flight geometry maps. And I know some of you might not remember, there was this whole tool that people would use to look at the thrust vector of a ship. And, you could look at the diagram to see, how many G's each direction has. You can kind of still do that, but they've kind of normalized things a little bit more. I think that if they even decided to say, okay, you can kind of tune your ship and maybe get better thrusters, better directional thrusters to build your own flight geometry, I think that'd be interesting, more interesting than saying, okay, I have a tier 5 ship, I'm just faster now. Again, because instead of just, grinding for credits or crafting a better component, it really comes down to another real world skill set that is tuning your vehicle, right? So I think CIG wants us to kind of personalize our ship and, invest in a specific ship and go down that entire route to, being good at it. But I think for the PvP scene, this is going to be something that, okay, well, to be really good, it's a whole involved system. It's not just buy a ship, jump in it, and, learn the flight model and be good. There's a lot of systems and layers, or, for lack of a better term, more hoops that you have to jump through to be that guy, right? And not everybody's going to be excited about that. But I think that once people get used to it, it might be interesting. I think that the player base are really going to have to take a look at it. I wish CIG would talk more about the flight geometry rather than just the master modes or the speeds. Again, I think there's a lot of conversations around this topic, so it might be kind of hard to pick, what might be the best thing. But again, quantum boost, I don't really care about that. I do think that it's good and makes sense. Of course, with all of these quantum markers floating all over the place, you need a more a system where you have more control, where the player has more control. So I think that is a good thing, but I don't really think that affects the flight model itself, right? That just affects the gameplay. That doesn't really affect the flight model. What the flight model is the geometry, right? The flight model is not really the speed, because if you create good geometry, the speeds don't matter, right? They kind of matter. I don't want to say they don't matter, but depending on what geometry you design, kind of depends on what speeds are fun, because, there are many different games that are fun at higher speeds than what Star Citizen is at right now. I mean, I think Star Citizen is one of the slowest space games right now. So I think that if you create a good geometry and you create good balance, you don't have to worry about the speed so much. I do think it's good that we're going to keep our weapons. I think it's stupid that we can't use our shields. I think it's kind of stupid that we can't use countermeasures right now. I'm glad that we're getting countermeasures back. I just think that there's just a lot of bad decisions all around, so, you know, surrounding the flight model, and I don't know why CIG are making these decisions. I really don't. The player base is basically just, you know, sitting here saying, I don't know what you guys are doing, don't do this. And CIG just, you know, they just keep pushing ahead with these bad ideas. And I hope that they just recenter, they refocus, focus on the geometry, test a geometry that is good, like make a baseline geometry, test it out with you know, QA or whatever, and just start working from there to make the ships feel more unique with their own geometries, and then factor that in with resource management and tuning and components and the ship tiers. And what they kind of showed off at CitizenCon is that these ship tiers are going to be very different. Basically, a higher tier quantum drive spools much faster than a tier 1, and it being that much of a noticeable difference is a good thing, but also a concerning thing, right? Because you're going to have players who are unskilled, but just, you know, I don't know. Realistically, this is an MMO. People are gonna RMT. People are gonna real money transaction because they want to be the best. That's just a reality. And designing systems like that are definitely going to encourage more people to do it. It's going to encourage more people to say, hey, I have this tier 5 quantum drive, you know, Venmo me $50. I think CIG definitely need to consider a lot of stuff with this system, and you know, don't just dive headfirst into it. Get as much feedback as possible. I think what they have to do is not easy. I don't envy their job, but let me know what you guys think. At the end of the day, I love having these conversations with you guys. You guys have a lot of great input in the comments down below, so let me know what you think. But that's gonna be it for me in this video, you guys. I think I rambled on long enough for you. Like I always say at the end of these videos, you guys, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Salut.